I'd like to officially welcome everyone to this webinar hosted by Ten10, all about future-proofing talent, tackling the digital skills gap in an emerging technology world. I am James Story, I'm Ten10's Content Marketing Manager, and today I'm joined by Ten10 Managing Principal, Steve Osman. Steve, could you introduce yourself to everyone who's watching?
Yeah, thank you, James, and welcome everyone. Good morning. So I'm Steve Osman. I'm one of the managing principals at Ten10. My role within Ten10, so I work with our clients to understand what their, technology pain points are, support kind of resourcing of delivery teams for our clients, and then provide a assurance level to make sure that the teams that we put on site are delivering in line with what our clients want.
Thanks, Steve. So I'm going to be asking you a range of questions today based on the difficulties that different organizations are experiencing due to the digital skills shortage. And if you'd like to ask Steve a question, please use the Q&A box on the toolbar below, or you can use the chat function, and we'll do our best to answer all the questions that we have in the time. So if there's any questions that we don't get to in the time, we'll follow up with you personally via email, so every question will be gotten to. But Steve, first, let's start with, what do we actually mean when we refer to this digital skills shortage?
Yep, thank you, James. So essentially the digital skills shortage. So it's the paradox that I think a lot of companies are facing at the moment, where there is an increasing demand of digital skills in the workplace, but the supply of individuals who can meet those digital skills isn't there, which has caused a gap between demand versus supply. And I think that's impacted by two main areas. As I said, you've got the demand side of digital skills. So, you go to any kind of marketing event, you talk to any of your clients at the moment, and there is still a massive drive for innovation, enhancements, upgrade, adoption of new platform, software, technology within the marketplace. That demand for work is still there, and that causes the technology demand for digital skills. And then you've got the other side of kind of digital skills, which is a bit more kind of informal as such, but it's more the way which we do our jobs. So the pandemic forced people overnight to work on platforms like Zoom, like Teams, using areas like that, which wasn't there before, wasn't needed 3, 4, 5 years ago. And that is still a digital skill which people need to be aware of. So you've got the demand side, which is requesting the skills. You've then got the supply side, and as I alluded to, there is only a kind of finite supply of people which have got those digital skills currently within the marketplace. That supply is fixed as such, and if anything, over the last couple of years, has actually been reducing due to factors like Brexit, where there has been a movement of skilled digital labour out of the UK, and also made it more challenging to bring people back into the UK, which wasn't in place before. Then you've got kind of issues around the school systems, where whilst the kind of fundamental foundations of digital skills are taught, it's not necessarily fast moving and fast paced enough to keep up with what's currently being demanded in the marketplace now. So that causes a little bit of an imperfect storm of lots of demand, not as much supply, and that leads to things like, again, what we've seen over the last 2 to 3 years in the labour market, where you've got the great resignation, that these people with the lower supply of digital skills are recognising that, and people are moving for more and more money. So those cost of that shorter supply is making those resources more and more expensive as well. So again, that all causes a massive challenge within the workplace at the moment.
Yeah, now certainly when we speak about solving the digital skills shortage, because Ten10 is an academy provider and a talent provider as well as a consultancy, we like to emphasize the benefits of bringing fresh new talent into every organization. But there are more than likely some people watching who haven't brought in a high number of new workers into their tech teams. So how should organizations deal with tech recruits who have low or no experience coming into their organization?
Yeah, so I think there's two ways of looking at it, which is kind of future-proofing your talent, and then re-engineering the way which you recruit as well. So most organizations will have experienced technologists within their organizations. They could be deemed the rock stars of an organization, who know what they're doing. They've got all the knowledge, but as I said, they're in short supply. it's also important for organisations to have an inwardly looking view of what their labour team are, working out where they've got a skills gap, working out where they've got a skill shortage, and initially from their current team, investing in training, looking at how they can train their team members using platforms like Bloom, Udemy, LinkedIn Learning, anything like that. So the first part of looking inwardly to what you've already got. But then once you've done that gap analysis and worked out, okay, we're going to have a pinch point in a couple of years' time where we've got these very talented people with these skills, but they're not going to be there forever. It's then kind of looking at models like the Academy at 1010, which can deliver those technologists of the future. So we put people through a intensive 8 to 10 week boot camp, teaching people what the fundamental digital skills that you do need within the current workplace. And then people need to, I think, take a risk on people. You need to appreciate that people aren't going to go into organizations with 5 years experience and be able to do anything straight away. And you need to use your experienced team members to be the teachers of your new staff members. And yes, that might draw them away a little bit from what they're doing on a day-to-day, but if you don't invest in that new wave of talent coming in, you're never going to cause or never going to solve that gap.
Yeah, and I think that when technology, teams in any organization think about innovation, it's always, applying things like automation or artificial intelligence. But I think very rarely people think of innovation in the sense of innovating their recruitment cycle, and innovating how they grow their teams, because innovation is naturally top of everybody's list. Innovation inside the recruitment cycle has arguably been, it's never been as important as it is right now, given all of those factors that you said previously. So in this tough economic landscape, how are organizations able to keep innovating when there are fewer resources available? How do they recruit and train and attract new staff?
Yeah, so I think it's a term innovation, which is new ideas, right? And at the moment, the workplace is currently made up from a majority perspective. So Generation Z and the millennial demographic makes up over 50% of the workforce at the moment, and they are newer individuals going into the workplace. But that group of people, they're the Y generation. They're the disruptors. They're the people who, when they go into the workplace, they're going to be the people asking why. Why are we doing it like that? Is there not a better way? Is there not a faster way? So I think, again, using models like academy recruitment, bringing people and young minds who are willing to challenge the status quo of doing things, that's going to drive innovation regardless. Using techniques such as innovation hubs, so giving people the ability to raise new ideas, and finally listen to what those new ideas are. If you embrace this new talent and these new ways of bringing new talent into the marketplace and the workforce, innovation isn't going to be a problem, because this is the generation of people who will challenge that.
Yeah, exactly right. Now, moving forward, how do you foresee the demand for digital skills evolving in the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years, especially with the growing influence of AI, which, we've got no shortage of news articles and discussion around AI, haven't we? So.
Yeah, absolutely. So I read an interesting stat the other week that 85% of jobs available in 2030 haven't been invented yet. And that kind of speaks volume, but you might think that sounds like a ridiculous statement. And it's not really. If you think about, not even just in technology, but in general at the moment around the leaps which things like social media, as you said, AI, automation, both from a technology and robotics perspective, that's grown massively in 5 years. The jobs which are in the market now didn't exist when I was graduating. Without being facetious, when I was at university, there was no such thing as an influencer on YouTube and these kind of people making millions from playing Minecraft. But that's an example of a digital skill which has been massively monetized, and it's going to be the same with leaps which are going to be happening now over the next 5 years. Where do I see the job market going? I think it needs to evolve. I think soft skills are going to remain important, and it's still going to be fundamentally important that jobs are still going to be there for people to do what computers can't do. And I think there's kind of 3 or 4, I think, key areas that I think is going to be important over the next kind of 3 to 5 years. I think you've got digital literacy. And what I mean by that is just having a fundamental knowledge of what the tech trends are, being able to use digital devices. Taking a basic example at the moment, you can do most things on your phone, and it's still making sure that you don't slip into that generational thing of saying, oh, I didn't use a phone when I was growing up, I don't need to use it. That's where the market's going, and you need to make sure that you're still going to be equipped with those skills. And I'm saying phone. I read somewhere recently that phones will not be what they are today in 5 years' time. They'll be a conduit to enable technology. So a phone will just be something which you have in your pocket to pick up a Wi-Fi signal or a 3G signal, and it will power watches, glasses, everything else. So again, being cognizant to those trends. You've then got data literacy. We're in the generation of things like AI is data driven. You've got big data and data analytics, and all of this is impacting into the 4th industrial revolution, where there is more data available to organizations than what there ever has been before. And the ability to consume and understand and present that data to such a way, whether it's to senior stakeholders, to present how projects are performing, to make management level decisions based on the metrics being provided by all this technology, that's going to be a massive skill. You've got your standard technical skills, which aren't going to slow down and aren't going to disappear. You still got, as you said, your cyber security, cloud, AI and machine learning, big data analytics, VR and automation, blockchain. That's all still going to be there. That's all still going to be developing, and that's still important for people to appreciate in terms of skills that are going to be required. And then finally, you've got your kind of softer skills, which are still going to be really, really important. So you've got your human level skills, critical thinking, effective searching, translating knowledge, communicating, collaborating, conflict resolution. Those skills don't go away just because there's a bigger demand for technology and computing and the information behind it. Computers aren't going to take over. They're going to help enable. They're going to help draw efficiencies, but you're still going to need people to use those efficiencies and use those enablers to make good decisions and to help keep driving innovation within the workplace.
Exactly. So many different skills, and as you say, the soft skills. Just because it's not a new programming language or anything, it's not an emerging technology. The ability to creatively solve problems and look for new solutions is just priceless, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So AI is naturally quite a hot topic right now, as I mentioned earlier. So I do want to focus on it a little bit longer. And it's that organizations in every industry and looking for new ways to utilize AI, whether that's kind of bringing it into existing practices to make them simpler, faster, or trying things that they've never done before because AI has enabled it. But that naturally puts quite a premium on having the qualified staff in order to get things done. So there almost becomes a separate AI digital skills problem. So what I want to ask is, can we solve that AI digital skills problem actually with AI?
Yeah, interesting. So this is where I like to refer to, I'm calling it the Watson paradox. Right? And what this essentially means is, and you've got Dr. Watson and Sherlock Holmes, and this is the analogy which I'm going to use because it works quite well with AI. We had Sherlock Holmes, who was the chief investigator, the person who would solve crimes, the person who would take the data points and be able to work out, connect the dots, and work out what was going on. You then had Watson, who was the enabler, the Sherlock. He would do all the research, he would do all the paperwork, all the admin side of that role to enable Sherlock to do his job. Again, not that I'm a massive geek or anything, but I read again that on the 2 occasions where Watson tried to do the job by himself, he never solved an actual crime. It was all done by Sherlock based on the inputs that came from Watson. So in a massive convoluted way, I guess what I'm saying is, AI, is it going to solve the digital skills gap? No, it's not. Is it going to help enable it? Is it going to help draw efficiencies to help support it? Yes, that's where AI is going to come in. not just in the recruitment side of it, not just in the technology side of it. It's going to help enable a lot of those things. So you can use AI within recruitment. For example, you can use AI to screen CV. You can use AI to generate interview questions. You can use AI to run psychometric tests. But you're still going to have a level of human review that's always going to be missed when you've got a bot which is doing anything, because it's very linear. It's based on linear inputs, which will say, look for these things. It might just say, for example, if you're reviewing a CV, I'm going to review a CV and it needs to have no gaps in employment. And that's fine, but it might end up rejecting a lot of very, very good candidates who, for various completely legitimate reasons, have taken breaks from the workplace. It could just be for their own mental health. It could be through parenting. It could be for whatever. But it would take a human eye to see that CV and realize that. So yeah, it will help, but it's not going to solve it. It will help enable it and make it more efficient, though.
That's great. Thanks very much for your insight, Steve. Now, so we're moving on now to the open Q&A portion of today. So I do encourage everyone who has a question that they'd like Steve to answer to either use the Q&A button in the bottom toolbar of the video, or you can just put it in the webinar chat and we will get to those questions. And we'll also be putting in a link for you to book a call with Steve or a member of our Academy team if after today you have any additional sessions. Yep, there we go. There's the link. If you have any additional questions, or if you want to speak to us in more of a business capacity, then you can book that in at your leisure. So let's start with some of the questions that were submitted to us ahead of today's session. And we have one here that says, in addressing the digital skills gap, what role can educational institutions play in preparing future professionals for the evolving demands of the business landscape?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I guess it's a challenging question based on what I was saying before around kind of the supply side of one of the impacts that's driving the digital skills gap, that some of the ways which the education system works isn't enabling people to have the up-to-date skills. And I think there's lots of ways which can help mitigate that. You're never going to change a full curriculum, because fundamentally you can't. Everyone needs to have the foundation. If they want to do an IT course or an STEC course or anything like that, you need to always be taught those fundamentals and those foundations of digital skills. Where I think school systems, colleges, and universities can help equip people better is providing opportunities for people to use the more up and coming and niche skills. So within school systems, you can use initiatives like coding clubs, Raspberry Pi clubs, and that gives and there are after school workshops, but no different multi sports or anything like that. But it gives people who are interested in pursuing something which is a bit more innovative to allow them to do that and to get exposure to the more fast moving skills earlier on. I think if I could wave a magic wand for the education system and think of a way which it could help be solved, if you could introduce a module for every IT course where you've got a module which is either once a year, once a semester, once a term, or whatever, and you can mark it as being emerging technologies, that you still have a module within your core system where you do address emerging technologies, and that needs to be something which is being updated almost on a year by year or a curriculum by curriculum basis, that still enables you to understand what's big in the workplace now, what's going to be big in 5 years' time, and giving people the opportunity to experience that from an early age, from an early stage of their education.
Yeah, and we actually got a couple of education-based questions. I know that you mentioned, a little bit about the role that the educational institutions play, and it's all, every year you hear a little bit about how degrees are the most important and also the least important thing in every job field that's going on there. So, education's always under a lot of scrutiny. But certainly one question that we got was about incentivizing people. It was, how can we incentivize high school students to become interested in technology?
Yeah, and I guess one point which I guess I want to say with this is, and I don't know if the person who asked these questions are on this this webinar now, but do please get in contact with us directly, because I'd like to have a bit more of a detailed conversation around this, and if there's anything which we can do to help support the individual who's submitted these questions. But again, linked to everything which I said before around making technology more available to students, I think is important. I think the other side which people need to consider as well is, rightly or wrongly, technology will have a misconception that you need to be a super smart IT whiz who goes to university and can do coding and do all this sort of stuff. You don't. I went to university, but I didn't do a computer science degree. I did economics. But it's not stopped me from having a career within technology. But taking that even a step further, taking 1010's Academy as an example, we don't mandate university degrees to become part of our academy. There's again, the misconception that I'm a woman, I can't work in technology. There's no barriers to entry to having the enablement to do these sort of careers. Within 1010, 50% of our graduate intake are ladies. Around 40 to 50% are from the BAME community. So making sure that those barriers to entry are debunked and debunked quickly, to make sure that every individual, regardless of background and anything, have that ability to go into these sort of careers, needs to be understood as early as possible.
Yeah, exactly. It's completely priceless, isn't it? The value of people seeing people who look like them in those roles, and tech has historically been a field that has struggled with diversity issues. So I know that we personally take a lot of pride in our ability to help other people from lots of different backgrounds. We've had people who return to work, we've had people who've taken extended breaks, we've had people who've come over from overseas and lived in the UK for a good while, and then they're taking an entirely new break and then have chosen 100%. Technology, and it's always that spark and that motivation we look for, isn't it?
100%.
Yeah, great. And staying a little bit in the education field again, we got a question which was, to what extent does education help bridge the tech skills gap or hinder progress? So I mean, one thing when I saw this question come in that I wanted to pose to you was, you mentioned about curriculums. We live we work in a tech field that moves incredibly quickly. Is it possible for even like a university curriculum, with the speed that those move at, to kind of accurately reflect what's being used or what's coming up?
Yeah, and it's without repeating myself, I think you're never going to change the core level of curriculum, because you can't. You can't create a curriculum course which is going to involve the emerging technologies from a completely singular course. If you can introduce modules for emerging technology, you can do that. There is always going to be specialist courses within AI which you can encourage people to do. But I think allowing an element of curriculum to bridge that gap through a single module, you can't make it mandatory, because you couldn't and you shouldn't do, but making that course available to people, where you've got an emerging technology course to give people the opportunity to indulge in new technology and new innovations, I think would help bridge that gap. And that's more, I guess, from the university system, where you are working in a more modular based education system. And again, going back to the kind of college and high school and primary school side, it's just giving people exposure and enablers to technology. And is that going to be a big problem in the future? I'm not sure. I mean, one of the things I said before was around being digitally able to use digital technology. So my youngest child is 4. He's in reception at the moment. Within state school system, they're already using VR headsets to help with their learning, which we had one computer across the whole year group when I was at school. So he's already going to have much more than what I did, the digital literacy, which is going to be required for the future anyway. So things are still moving, and it's still making sure that you're embracing and adopting those fast moving changes.
Yes, I have two nephews, and the things I have in that classroom are far beyond the overhead projector that we had to borrow from
Exactly,
another classroom.
exactly.
Super. Yeah, so we've had a couple of extra questions come through during our session. One is about the 1010 Academy. It says
Yep.
you've mentioned the 1010 Academy a couple of times. I was wondering if you could just tell us more about it.
Yeah, so the Ten10 Academy, so that is the part of our organization where if you're an organization, for example, which is potentially struggling with the digital skills gap, or you need technology trained entry level individuals, but you don't have the facility, the time, or the skill set within your own organization to train new joiners to be young technologists, you can utilize our academy. So, as James said at the start of the call, if you do have an interest in our academy, do get in contact. And we'll book a session in with you to understand what your requirements, your pain points are, and what you're trying to address. But essentially, we can provide young technologists or technologists in general who can join your organization. They're fully trained in terms of QA, business analysts. We can do DevOps bolt-ons, automation bolt-ons. If you've got a bespoke type of technology which is important within your organization, we can do bolt-ons around that. Those individuals will then join your organization. They are essentially yours to mold, understand, train within your organization's way of working, still with the reach back within a company like Ten10, and utilizing our more experienced staff from a management wrapper perspective. But then you've got the option, not necessarily the obligation, but the option to then take our team members after a 2-year period to then become full-time members of your organization. So you're getting well-taught, well-skilled entry-level technologists to become your future technologist within your organization. So that's essentially how it works from a business side of things.
It's great. Thanks for that. And we've had a second question come through, which is about job titles. It says, what jobs or job titles and digital skills are most in demand in terms of the tech skills talent gaps that we're experiencing today?
Good question. So just purely from a I guess a test analyst perspective. So the term test analyst isn't really a job title that's used as much within the workplace at the moment. It's then became quality analyst because quality should be factored in from the whole delivery cycle, not just from a test side of it. And that's evolved more now that it's now QA engineers. And that QA engineer can be a broad term, but I think we're moving away from job titles which are very specific in terms of what that individual thing is. Test analyst means you are just doing almost functional testing. A quality engineer is someone who can pick up almost lots of different types. It's that T-shaped level consultant where someone can do the functional side of things. They can write a test script. They're also able to do things around the automation side of things. They'll be able to kind of automate the side of things. They're also able to interpret requirements, to build your testing scenarios. So I think that kind of quality engineering that the job title is going to become more important. And as I said, I don't know what the job roles are going to be in 5 years' time, because I don't think a lot of them have been invented yet. But robotic process automation engineers, business process automation engineers, I think that's something which is massive in the workplace at the moment, and we're seeing more and more of. So I think those kind of areas which will be important, but it's engineers rather than analysts, which I think is the important differentiator at the moment.
Yeah, I see. Great. We had another question come through. It says, in 2023, we saw the contract market taking a massive hit. As a consultancy, do you foresee the contract market supply and demand returning in 2024?
I think there's always going to be a need for the contract market. I think there are still individuals who are still out there who want to be associates. I think where the contract market potentially takes a bit of a hit is that movement to inside versus outside in terms of IR35, and that does impact potentially the supply of contractors within that market, because a lot of them have now thought, well, I may as well go permanent. You know, I don't see there's ever going to be a point where the need for contractors is going to disappear. I think organisations are realising, because of the digital skills gap, that they want to have longer term permanent level employees, but you're always going to have those niche level skills where you're going to need that burst capacity to use contractors. I think it's important for contractors or associates to make sure that they stay current and relevant within the involved workplace, and making sure that they are considering the new digital skills demand to make sure that they do still stay relevant.
Super. Thanks very much for that. We also have, what skills do you see being most in demand from contractors?
Most in demand from contractors. So no different from most in demand from consultancy organisations. So the things around where we see the development at the moment around, as I said, cyber, cloud, AI, machine learning, data analytics, VR and automation, all those skills. It's not just relevant to consultancies like 1010. That's still relevant to contractors as well. That's I almost don't like the what's the skills for contractors versus what's the skill for consultancy, because it's all one of the same thing. We're still technologists fundamentally, and it's those skills that I think are going to be important regardless of whether you deem yourself a permanent member of staff, a consultant, or a contractor.
And actually, I was doing some research ahead of this session, specifically into contract work, and it was very interesting to see that I think it was on IT Jobs Watch. They looked at about 6 months worth of job vacancies that went up onto that platform. And on contracting, the most in demand skill was like soft skills.
Yeah.
So away from programming languages, away from platforms, Microsoft Azure, AWS, things like that. The most common thing people are looking for are those soft skills of being able to work in a team, collaborate, problem solve, creativity, and the analytical thinking, all of those things. So yeah, I think you're right in that there's the gap between those two roles really isn't as big as some people might think.
No, exactly, and contractors by general definition are experienced technologists, and it's those experienced technologists which are going to still be massively in demand to make sure that you're able to interpret all this new technology. To be the Sherlocks of the future. To be the ones who can take the inputs from AI generated outputs and make sure that they understand it, they interpret it, they can assure it, and they can make sure it's actually doing what it's meant to be doing.
Super. Yeah, great question. Thank you for submitting. And then we have one here that asks, how important are multilingual skills in tech? Tech certainly being incredibly global industry, companies having to make stuff that is accessible to everyone in all kinds of regions. How important would you say multilingual skills are?
I think it's an example of a relevant soft skill, which is always going to be have a level of importance, or certainly act as an advantage, especially for more kind of international organisation where there's going to be offices across the world. And this is where I say, even from the soft skill perspective, being able to communicate with individuals from other offices, those multilingual skills will be really useful. There is the side of it of this is where technology can act as an enabler and something to make things more quicker, that you can very, very quickly change something from English to French, from French to German, from German to Spanish. However, the need to be able to do the assurance of those translations to make sure that they actually do translate properly is going to be important. So again, that skill from multilinguist is still going to be there. So I don't think it's gone away, but it goes into that pool of soft skills, which is going to remain important within the IT place.
Super, that's great. Thanks so much for your question. And that takes care of all of the questions that have been submitted, and that's going to wrap things up for us today. Steve, thanks once again for your time and for sharing your experiences and advice with everyone.
Brilliant. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
It's great. So yeah, I said it at the top of the session, but it bears repeating. Please feel free to connect with Steve on LinkedIn, and remember to use the link that we currently have in the chat if you'd like to book a call with us. And that's to discuss absolutely anything from discussing the tech skills gap a little bit further, to discuss future-proofing people's talent, bringing people into your organization for our academy. Whatever you'd like to discuss, we'd be happy to discuss it with you. But otherwise, have a great day, and thank you very much for watching.
Thank you, everyone.